Well, thank you for joining us today. I will have our team just introduce themselves, a little brief introduction before we kick off. So if with that said, maybe Grady, if you want to start us off.
Morning or good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation, Carrie, and for all the team's hard work. I'm Grady Valensis. I'm a Deputy Director in the Health and Safety Operational Services Department at the International Association of Firefighters in Washington, D.C. I'm happy to be a part of this team. We've been working with our partners at the International Association of Fire Chiefs over the past couple of years with a project on just addressing and studying barriers and facilitators to WFI implementation. And we have learned a lot over these past couple of years of work. We've overcome many challenges from the pandemic, but we're learning a lot of new and exciting things and ways that departments are addressing and working to improve the wellness and fitness of their members, through their careers and long into retirement. So happy to be a part of this fine group of people here in the panel today, and looking forward to any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Grady. And just on that, just a administrative note, if you guys do have questions, as we're going through the webinar, please feel free to write them down in the Q&A. And if we can't get them to them during the webinar, then we'll definitely get to them at the end with the Q&A period. Jill.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Craig, and I'm an exercise physiologist by education and trade. My affiliation is Austin Fire Department. I was hired on then with them in 1997. And that was about the time that the IAFF and IAFC were forming a consortium to address firefighter health and wellness. So about that same year, I became a technical advisor to the IAFF IAFC task force. And since then, we've worked not only on the Wellness Fitness Initiative, but we created and validated CPAT, went on to produce a curriculum for peer fitness trainers. And now in this iteration, it's Fit to Thrive. I was the program manager that helped to produce a program and implement it in an Austin Fire Department. And it took all of my 20 years, and I retired in 2015. Good to meet you all.
Thanks, Jill. Mike.
Hey, everyone. Mike Cassiola, 28 years with FDNY. I was the fitness coordinator for FDNY for 16 years until my retirement in 2016. Just like Jill, I've been involved in the program almost since its inception, from the late 1990s until present. I was fortunate enough to be involved with the validation of CPAT as well, PFT program. I was the coordinator at the inception of the WFI in New York City. I can't say enough about the program. It's been tremendous for our members and for members across the fire service in North America. And I'm very proud to say that I'm part of it, and I'm proud to be part of the work that we're doing. It's a great program, and I look forward to your questions and participation.
Thanks, Mike. You just to add, Jill and Mike are two of the most knowledgeable individuals I've ever met with regards to wellness and fitness in the fire service. As they've mentioned, been involved from the very inception of this whole thing, and over the past 25 years. So if you guys do have questions related to anything firefighter wellness and fitness, then they are definitely amazing resources. So please take advantage. Costa.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. Thank you for letting me introduce myself. My name is Kostopoulos. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I joined the Performance Redefined team with Dr. Frost in 2019. And since then, I've been working closely with the IAFF, growing all their initiatives for fitness and wellness in the fire service, specifically now F2T. I worked closely with Dr. Frost on this particular project, and it was it was great for me to work closely with our IAFC partners and really get an education, a continuing education on all aspects of wellness and fitness in the fire service and the different components that really go into that very important endeavor. So I'm honored to be part of the team. Always learning. Every day is an education for me, and this project was no different. So happy to be a panelist and happy to be here with you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Costa. Carrie, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I am Carrie Sutherland. I'm the project coordinator at NDRI USA. I'll just be on here to kind of field Q&As and help if there's any technical difficulties. So I'm just going to stay muted in the background.
Great. Thanks, Carrie. My name is Dave Frost. I am a professor at the University of Toronto. I've been there since 2012 and have been involved with the IAFF since 2009. Kind of got involved through research that I was doing at the time with the fire service, really trying to understand how do we prepare firefighters for essentially what you guys do. And so got involved with the IAFF in 2009, met Jill, Mike, and the entire team, and got involved with their wellness and fitness initiative, their peer fitness training program, now Fit to Thrive, and all the work that I do essentially as a researcher, and then separately, I guess, as a consultant with the IAFF and the IAFC, is all to support you guys in what you do. And we've learned a lot over the past 25 years. The last, I guess, 16 years or so that I've been involved in the fire service, it's grown immensely. I think there's been so many positive changes. Out of the gate, I just really want to acknowledge the efforts that the IAFF and the IAFC have made to really support firefighter wellness and fitness. As someone who's been involved in the, kind of, I guess, the wellness fitness industry outside of the fire service for 25 plus years, I think a lot of what has been done is leading the field, not just for firefighters, but for everyone. And I know that, looking at the WFI specifically and the resource that it is, there are a lot of other organizations and a lot of other groups that look to the WFI as a resource because of how comprehensive it is and what's entailed. So really, as has been mentioned, thrilled to be involved with the team, thrilled to have been involved in the project that we've been working on with the IAFF and IAFC for the past 2 years, but just more broadly, to be a part of the efforts that are being made, the continuous efforts that are being made to support firefighter wellness and fitness is an absolute privilege. So the approach that I would like to take today is, we will definitely speak to some of the results of this 2-year study that has been going on, to share some of the obstacles and facilitators, but I'd also like to maybe put that within the context of the broader WFI and speak to also things that we've learned over the past number of years and how do we view the WFI? What, I guess, how can we view this resource for what it is and actually make something that is relevant to us within our departments. And so I will also lean on Mike and Jill to speak to their experiences on, what were some of the things that really helped their groups succeed in their own respective ways, and perhaps, how did they overcome certain obstacles and leverage certain facilitators and so on. So we will speak to the specifics of the study, but within the broader context of the WFI. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen here for a sec. And maybe if somebody on our team can just give me a thumbs up that you guys can see that. Perfect. Okay. So just as a starting point, I want to acknowledge that, the WFI has been this evolving resource over the past 25 years. And I think, again, the IAFF and the IAFC deserve a lot of credit for the work that has gone into making it, the most comprehensive resource to support firefighter wellness and fitness that exists. There's nothing that even comes close. And so I think that they deserve a lot of credit for the efforts that have been made, and this project that we just are completing now is a testament to that. So not necessarily ever satisfied with what's there, is always looking at how do we improve listening to feedback from departments that have, tried various things, and, are there other pieces of information, are there other guidelines that should be integrated into the WFI to better support, firefighters in the organizations they work for. And I think, it really needs to be said that, if you're not familiar with the WFI, it's really in your best interest to become familiar with the WFI, because it is very much a collection of best available evidence, best available guidelines to support every department in their pursuit of, a better, healthier community. And so that's really how I would encourage everybody to think about the WFI. It's extremely comprehensive, extremely broad, and should be used to inform the implementation of wellness and fitness programs across the board. Now, that said, also to highlight that additional work that has gone on with the WFI is, by the IAFF and the IAFC, are looking at what other programs can we actually build to support the implementation of something like a WFI. And over the past couple of years, this is a brand new program that we've really been trying to put together, again, to help everybody in their own pursuits, but the Fit to Thrive program. And the commitment that has been made there is really, let's try and address this physical, psychological, social well-being of firefighters, knowing it's a very comprehensive, complex problem. Can we lean on some of the guidance that's in the WFI, but provide very tangible, practical solutions to departments to help them, on the front line. And so Fit to Thrive is one of those programs that has been born as an extension of the Wellness and Fitness Initiative. I think, this is a quote that's always resonated with me, and I wanted to share this with the audience today, because I think it really speaks to some of the bigger picture items that I'll address. That the WFI really is a system. And, if we have, our own respective goals within our departments, you're hoping to achieve such and such with members, to save money, to reduce the number of injuries, whatever the goals are, the success in achieving those goals is going to be very much dependent on the systems that we have in place. And we can be leaning on the WFI as that system that really provides the guidance to help achieve these goals that we have. And nothing, really works in isolation. So we can't just say, I want to improve, firefighters' sleep habits or nutrition habits. It really is looking at the system that we have in place, the logistical constraints, the members' interests, the organizational needs, and how do they all work together? What are some of the obstacles that exist right now? What are some of the facilitators that could be leveraged? But it fits into this broader system. And I think that we can all be looking at the WFI as this system that provides us with guidance. So with that said, if we're looking at the WFI and what it is, I've kind of listed 5, kind of areas here that all work together in support of firefighter wellness and fitness. And so this is the framework that, we can all be thinking about. And so at the most, fundamental level, what the WFI does is it helps to define what wellness really is. And if we look at, the physical, psychological, and social aspects of well-being, there are guidelines within the WFI to assess these pieces. To say, with the firefighters, coming through, is this individual actually in a state of, positive physical health or positive psychological well-being? And so there are guidelines that exist to help, really to not only define what wellness would look like, but some guidelines that departments can actually take, action steps with to sort out, where their firefighters currently stand. But the value of being able to assess any of these things is only good to the extent that we can actually do something about it. And so assessment in the absence of any type of intervention, doesn't really do a whole lot for us. And so as an extension of the assessment component, or really during trying to define what wellness is, there are behaviors that can be targeted with various programs, under the umbrella of this wellness piece. And I'll speak maybe just a little bit more briefly in a second, but there are 5 behaviors that all firefighters in all departments should really be thinking about, that interact, that are influencing the wellness and fitness of the member, or of anybody who's part of the organization. And if we're not really thinking about how these 5 behaviors contribute to the overall well-being of a firefighter, then we might not necessarily be achieving as much as we could. And again, the WFI within this system and within this framework, really provides guidance to help support programs that can target these specific behaviors. Third piece here is, if we are putting together programs to try and address these behaviors to overcome perhaps some of the issues that have been found in these assessments, we might actually need policies or procedures in place to help support wellness. And so if they're, depending on the department, the size, the logistical constraints, there may be different policies that could really help to facilitate the implementation of these other programs. And we can't overlook how important policies and specific protocols are in the implementation. So number 3 would be, what are we doing to support wellness? Fourth one, and I'm sure this is something that everybody on the call has considered before, but if someone is in a state where they would not be defined as having sufficient wellness and fitness for duty, for life, what does the restoration or rehabilitation process look like? Is there a return to work plan? If somebody goes off on light duty, what actually happens? How do we bring them back to the point where they would be categorized as someone who is in a positive state of health and well-being? So fourth piece here is, we have to make sure that if we're defining wellness in this way, and we have programs that are trying to change certain behaviors, that if someone, for whatever reason, isn't quite meeting these targets, that there is a plan in place to help bring them back. It's really trying to support the members in their own personal pursuits. And then the last piece, to promote wellness, this is really looking at the actual implementation strategies. How are we actually going about, getting buy-in from all stakeholders? How do we, get everybody invested in wanting to and willing, enthusiastic, for the pursuit of these different pieces that we're putting together? And this will also include the evaluation of, various aspects of the program. So are we actually, being successful in the pursuits that we have? And part of this involves, collecting data, looking at metrics, soliciting feedback. But this is all in the effort of promoting the overall program. And so, to summarize, the WFI really is this system that addresses all these pieces. And if we were to touch on each one in isolation, it's not going to have the same influence or the same impact that collectively it can. And again, this is why the WFI is the most comprehensive resource that exists at the moment. So just, maybe a little bit more granular on each of these pieces, just to provide some context for everyone. So from the first step, so with defining wellness, there are specific guidelines that have been established by subject matter experts in this space. And again, another testament to the IAFF and the IAFC is that they've assembled a task force that includes subject matter experts, physicians, clinicians from essentially all over the world. And they've come together and looked at the best available evidence. And, what are some of the tests that should be put in place to assess the well-being of firefighters? And the NFPA standards 1582 and 1583 have essentially been have come from the WFI and the work that's been done by this task force and the subject matter experts. And so again, incredibly comprehensive, and can't overemphasize how much effort has been put in to support this idea of really trying to establish what wellness looks like and how we can assess people along the way to make sure they're essentially in a state that is conducive to living well both on and off the job. So a second piece here, and this is again what I mentioned about these 5 behaviors. So these are 5 behaviors that everybody on the call should be thinking about at all times, because they will all interact to influence, how we navigate life on the job and off the job. It's about, the mindset that we live with. So we've, kind of termed this breathe. This is the foods that we eat, the dietary habits that we have. That this is getting more physical activity into our day to day. It's trying to find some way to develop a sleep routine. And obviously, firefighters' sleep often gets disrupted, but are there things that we can be doing to really, I guess, get better sleep? And then the last piece, I think, that is, in my opinion anyways, and the work that I've done is often overlooked, is the power of community and the connections that we make, the relationships that we've established. And perhaps no more important than the fire service, given the close personal connections that are established. But the connections and our relationships have such a powerful influence over our health and well-being. That these are 5 behaviors that we should all be thinking about, and that the WFI at its core is really highlighting why these are important, but what can we be doing to really try and address some of these pieces within a department, within the a larger program. Supporting wellness, again, just a couple just some ideas related to policies, but I just want to again highlight that it's one thing to say I want to target this behavior, we want to put together some type of physical activity program. But if there aren't policies in place, such as, we're going to, allow members to be active on shift, or we're going to allocate time for such and such, then it might be hard to actually, change the behaviors we're trying to change. So in many cases, there are going to be supporting policies or procedures that are needed to really achieve the successes we're trying to achieve. Restoring. So I don't know if anybody knows, but the things I listed initially on defining wellness, so how we would establish what wellness looks like, these are really the same things that we should be thinking about from a restoration or a rehabilitation standpoint. So if someone is not meeting these targets, to say, from a cancer screening perspective or a body composition perspective, we need to make sure that we're bringing them back to the same points that we would deem to be healthy and positive for well-being. But this has to be considered in that, like I mentioned, the whole return to work piece. And then the last thing about promoting wellness, again, this gets into the implementation process, and it speaks directly to the 2-year study that we're just wrapping up. And as has been mentioned, the big emphasis with this project was, let's try and understand the obstacles and facilitators to the implementation of a wellness and fitness program. Let's actually speak to as many departments as we can from, all regions of Canada and the US, small, large. Let's get opinions and perspectives from lots of different stakeholders. And, what would this look like within an implementation framework or an implementation system? And that is, again, part of this bigger picture within the WFI. So let's embed some of the new findings, from a project like this into the resource and make sure that this is readily available for everyone. So with that said, specifically speaking to implementation, we also need a system or a framework, because implementation, and I'm sure the panel here would probably agree with this, but implementation is largely where things go awry. It's one thing to say, here's what's needed, but actually putting something into practice is a completely different ballgame. And if we don't have a comprehensive plan, if we don't have some type of framework that we can lean on to do so, then we're unlikely to achieve the successes I think that we want to achieve. And so what I've laid out here is kind of like a 5-step process that everybody can be thinking about as well. First thing is really be clear on the objectives that you have. What are you trying to accomplish? And through that lens, I would also encourage everyone to think about the diversity in potential opinions on what you're trying to achieve. Because what a chief might want to achieve is perhaps different than what a firefighter would like to achieve. And so we have to consider the perspectives of everyone, and what success might actually look like. And that's not to discount or dismiss the the perspective of anyone. It's just kind of bringing it in collectively, because if we're trying to get buy-in, if we want, every single stakeholder involved, then we're going to really need to understand where they currently stand, because they're going to need to see value in what is being done in order to buy in, to get engaged, and then, see successes down the road. So after we've defined the objectives, this is where we need to really get in and assess the needs and wants. So this is where, you may have to do a little bit of homework and try and understand the administrative constraints, the logistical constraints, the members' perspectives. Gather as much information as you can to try and understand what it's gonna take to make this success. And again, some of this speaks directly to the study that was done, because we went and tried to understand from different stakeholders within a department, what are the factors that you feel are relevant or important to the successful implementation, and hearing specifically about their needs and their wants and what they think will really help or really hurt is extremely valuable to then design a comprehensive plan. So you need to go through the assessment phase in order to design a comprehensive plan, because if you start to design before you understand, what it is that you're dealing with, you may end up trying to create a solution or creating a solution that doesn't actually address your specific needs. So that leads into the design. And after you touch on the design, it's again, as I've mentioned, we need to put something in place. How do we actually implement this? How do we actually make it work? And the whole time we need to be evaluating progress. So at every stage along the way here, we're monitoring progress, soliciting feedback to make sure that we're actually on the track that we intend to be on. So now, speaking specifically to this 2-year project that we've just gone through, we tried to make contact with many departments. 180 departments ended up being involved in this project. And just to highlight, they were from all 16 districts, all 8 divisions of the IFC, representation from all across the US and Canada. We had small departments, so less than 200 members, medium size between 200 and 600, and large departments that were over 600. So we didn't want to, bias the data in any way to say this is all from large departments or all from small departments. We wanted representation from across the board. And we also wanted representation, so this was done via survey, but we also wanted representation from different stakeholders. So we had chiefs filling out surveys, we had union presidents filling out surveys, and we had anybody else, that has historically been involved in these wellness and fitness pursuits fill out the surveys. Because it's really important not only to get perspectives from these different stakeholders, but actually contrast the perspectives, because at times there are differing perspectives, and what one group will identify as an obstacle or a facilitator is not viewed in the same way by someone else. And so in those situations, one of the first steps that we might need to take is let's get everybody on the same page. Why, what is the reason, or what are the reasons why the chief and the unit president aren't seeing eye to eye, that there is a little bit of disagreement there. And so that was very important to us to make sure we're having representation from multiple stakeholders. And so essentially what was done is there were 44 factors identified, via evidence that have an influence on the implementation of various programs. And so we asked this subject group to comment on whether these factors were facilitators or obstacles to the implementation of a wellness and fitness program. And they had the option of commenting on both sides for every single factor, and could also highlight a magnitude. So was this a minor facilitator, or a moderate facilitator, or a major facilitator? And same thing on the obstacle side. And so at the end of the day, we could, kind of tease out, are there differences between the size of a department? Are there differences between the stakeholder group? Are there differences across, in the regions across the country? And so we basically consolidated all this information, dialed it down. And at the end of the day, we came out with 8 items. So 8 of these 44 factors that were both highly influential as a obstacle and or facilitator, and modifiable. So things that could actually be changed. And that was really important because if we're trying to provide recommendations or guidelines, giving people things that they could actually work on, it needs to be things that are also modifiable. And so we found 8. And those 8 factors could be categorized into 4 domains. So the first one was leadership. Second one was the systems that are in place. The third one was members. And the fourth one was the department. And I will share, so these are the specific factors that shook out. So within the leadership domain, it's management's involvement, commitment to, and support of wellness and fitness. Same thing on the labor side. Under the systems, it's actually having a comprehensive plan that can be executed in place, and the involvement of champions or ambassadors for this program. On the membership side, it's their willingness to engage in any department initiative, not just wellness and fitness, but absolutely anything. So are your members actually willing to be involved in something that is led by the department? And then separately to that, their enthusiasm towards wellness and fitness. And then at the department level, it was the culture, just more broadly. So not necessarily related to wellness and fitness, but what is the broad culture within the department? And then the relationship between labor and management. And those are the 8 factors that shook out from our survey as, again, highly influential and modifiable that every department should really be looking at with regards to the implementation of a wellness and fitness program. And the little figure that I've got in the middle here is that this is kind of how you can think about prioritizing these pieces. And so if you're looking at these right now and reflecting on how things look like in your own department, the first question I would ask is, what does what are the 2 leadership factors look like? If you don't have commitment from both sides, that's step number 1. And, I might lean on Jill and Mike in a sec to comment on, perhaps some strategies to do something like that. If you have commitment from the top, then the next step is let's look at the system piece. Let's make sure we have a comprehensive plan in place and we can involve champions to help, push the program forwards. If you have that in place, then the third step is let's make sure we can get the members on board. Let's make sure that we have members enthusiastic towards wellness and fitness, and make sure that they're willing to engage in this initiative. And that if you have all that in place, then you're probably good to go. And you probably have a positive culture, and you probably have a positive relationship between labor and management. But if leadership systems and the membership are not in place, something that we can do in the meantime is work on the culture and work on the relationship between labor and management. And that might then lead to some changes in the other 3 aspects as well. So I'm going to stop talking in a second here, but I just want to also highlight what could be done and how the WFI, like some of these results, will be integrated into the WFI. Well, to overcome obstacles, to leverage facilitators, it's one thing to say, yeah, this factor exists, but then the next step that we would like to take is to say, what could a department actually do? What can I do to establish a better relationship between labor and management? Or what can I do to get more buy-in from a union president or from a fire chief? And so what we've done here is list 12 different, I guess you can think about as in types of interventions or types of strategies, from restructuring the environment to education, to training, to modeling, to enabling, to changing policies. And what we've done is list, for the leadership, the systems, the membership, and the department, which of these 12 types of strategies can be thought of or can be relevant to addressing these different factors. And we will also have, as part of Fit to Thrive, very concrete, practical resources and recommendations that tie in what would incentives look like to address the leadership gap, or what would the use of champions look like to increase member enthusiasm. And so we're trying to be very practical with the recommendations that are provided to make sure that we can address the specific and unique needs that a department has. That said, just my summary here, at the end of the day, this is all about, it's for duty, for life. It's physical, psychological, social well-being. everything that we're doing, everything the IFC and the IAFF are doing with regards to the Wellness and Fitness Initiative is really in support of firefighter wellness and fitness. And again, I just want to thank the team for the project, thank the IAFF and the IFC for everything that they've done and continue to do, and thrilled to be a part of it. Now, with that, I would like to lean on our subject matter experts that we have here with Jill and Mike to perhaps comment on how things have been done in Austin and how things kind of worked in FDNY. Perhaps some of the very specific or practical things that were done to help support the implementation of a wellness and fitness program. And I know both were incredibly influential in the design and the implementation over a many number of years. So probably way too much information there for them to share in the next little bit. But Jill, if you wouldn't mind starting and maybe share some of your thoughts on what really contributed to the successes you guys had.
Absolutely. So we're going back to 1997 when I had my first exposure to the Labor Management Task Force. That was a really big deal in that 10 cities across the US and Canada were involved. They were picked because they were geographically different. They were different size-wise. The thing they had in common, though, was that at that time they had good labor management relationships. And it was clear within all those departments that we were working on something to benefit the membership and the department and by extension, the communities they served. And we were very transparent about that among those 10 cities. So if I had to pick one major ignition point, it would be forming or nurturing relationships between labor and management. This reminds me of, I was interviewing the acting fire chief who worked on the Wellness Fitness Initiative, on the task force. And I asked him, knowing that there had been many fits and starts in wellness and fitness programs in the Austin Fire Department, I asked him why he thought this time it came together. And he told me 3 reasons. He said, as I had mentioned before, labor management relationships were good, that he had found and nurtured champions within the department. This might be an operations captain who is middle management, but revered and beloved, and who would, within his crews, nurture the ideas of wellness and fitness and their importance to not only their job, but their life. He said he thought it was very important that he had chosen to put a subject matter expert at the helm. And the reasons were many. A fire department, if you put someone from the rank and file in charge of a fitness or wellness program, that becomes a revolving door, and they have different interests. They have special operations aspirations or management aspirations. And so the revolving door keeps kicking out whoever's at the helm of the wellness and fitness program. It also probably helps to encourage faith in any program or any initiative that is set forth by that department, knowing that it wasn't just some random or biased person's notion of what fitness and health look like. And so those were history, but I would have to throw in policy as being huge. The Wellness Fitness Initiative started out debating what sounded like an oxymoron, and that was that this program needed to be mandatory yet non-punitive. And that caused a lot of people to scratch their heads and say, how can that be both? Well, people had to participate by policy in our department. All of a sudden, the fire chief said, if you want to continue to work for Austin Fire Department, you will participate in medical surveillance, fitness assessment, and we will promote you in both those areas, or maybe all those areas, including behavioral health. So the fact that leadership gave it enough import to write policy around wellness and fitness was huge in longevity of our program, for certainly. Any questions about that, or Mike, any comments about that?
Jill, if I could just chime in quickly. So I think it's everything you mentioned there, I think is awesome. Was there anything specifically that was done or you could point to that helped to cultivate a relationship between labor and management? Or was there anything specifically that was done to identify, support, and sustain champions in the long term? Because it's one thing to get people involved out of the gate, but how do you keep people engaged over time?
Good question. In the initial stages, the department sent out invitations to people that were interested in participating on a wellness committee. These were people who would be tasked with asking the questions and answering them about what wellness and fitness looked like in a fire department. And the people that lent their time and energy to that were not only high-ranking officers, but there were people in the rank and file, people in mid-management, firefighters who themselves were subject matter experts in health areas, fitness areas, behavioral areas. And so the fact that it was so inclusive and so diverse in the initial discussions about a wellness fitness program was huge. These policies were not edicts handed down by management. They were cooperative, inclusive, and included the concerns across the board from high management to rookie firefighters.
And do you think that was made possible because of the positive relationship between labor and management?
Absolutely. And, that's a kind of a fluctuating, good labor management relationships ebb and flow with the tide. So it was important at that time to have begun with the task force because of how committed both labor, the union presidents, and the fire chiefs of all those 10 cities were. They were 100% in with both feet. And even the little political bickering or contract negotiations, those took a back seat to the job at hand. So absolutely, it's paramount. It won't succeed from the bottom up, and it will be rejected from the top down. So
yeah, just maybe highlight before I go to Mike here, but that same point, and that one of the reasons why the WFI and the kind of coming together of the IAFF and the IAFC is so historic is because there are a few things where that has happened, and they did kind of put potential differences aside and say, this is for the member. We're trying to improve firefighter wellness and fitness, and to have that ongoing commitment, for upwards of 25 years now. That's what makes this so important as well, and why everybody can lean on and should lean on the WFI as this resource to help them support their own pursuits, because it's being supported, endorsed, and continuously improved by both sides. So, Mike, do you want to comment on things in FDNY and perhaps some of the things that really helped to set you guys off in the right direction?
So I'll start by saying I couldn't agree with Jill more. I think that, with our experience and being involved with this for so long and our departments for so long, I think what we've experienced in trying to get the WFI off the ground will be similar throughout North America in the fire service. Again, I think Jill and I could talk for hours on this, but if I had to sum it up, I agree 100%. The most important thing here is getting labor and management together, which I thought was a huge task. I thought almost an impossible task because I've seen labor and management in New York City fight for years and years. In our situation, it was quite unusual. We had our union president become the commissioner, which I don't think that's happened in many places across the fire service. But in that regard, it helped us because he was on both sides of the fence. So we had that major labor and management support. I think the most important thing beyond that in FDNY, and I would venture to say that I think this would exist throughout, and from my experience with teaching in the IAFF, I think the next most critical thing is getting buy-in from the members. I was the one who was tasked with implementing the WFI after labor and management got together and agreed, and the IAFF, facilitated this. My biggest challenge was, how do I get the guys to believe this is non-punitive? You could say whatever you want, mandatory, non-punitive. Like Jill said, once you put mandatory on something, it's hard to say it's non-punitive. So my biggest challenge was, how do I get the members to really buy in that this program is about them? It's about making sure they're well, they're healthy, they're medically viable. They possess all the things we want to possess going through our careers and through our lives. And to me, that was the biggest challenge. And in the beginning, it was very, very difficult. They called me the Grim Reaper. I used to go on details to other firehouses, and they would think I was there, as Big Brother's eyes to, kind of write down who are the guys who aren't fit for duty and let's get rid of them. And that was a huge challenge, getting these guys to believe that this program is not about, finding out who's not fit for duty. It's about, how can we improve your fitness for duty? How can we improve your quality of life through wellness? And it took a year or so, but we have I think we have 96% buy-in from the members. Like Jill, it's mandatory in New York City. I know some of the other departments, you don't have to participate in the medical. It's up to you. The department will fund it, but you don't have to participate. In New York City, you must participate in the medical annually. And I think we're at a point now where the members aren't threatened by it. As a matter of fact, they've seen the value in it. We've detected multiple cases of cancer, metabolic disorder, heart-related issues. And I believe we've saved hundreds of lives through this program. But again, just to sum up, I think a big challenge for anyone who's involved in implementation of this program is, how can we get the guys on the ground level to buy into what we're trying to promote here?
So just on that, Mike, if could you speak to any specific things that were done to really help push that forwards? It sounds like, some of the testimonials, like, so once people seeing, these positive catches and how it is influencing, other members' lives, that probably has a positive impact. But is there anything else you can point to that, really helped to facilitate this process?
So honestly, Dave, in the beginning, and we've realized this, going through the WFI, that where we might have fallen a little short is how to give these people, how to give the departments resources to implement. And it was kind of similar in New York City. Like, we put this program in place, and after that, there was nothing to drive the implementation. And, luckily for me, I was involved, like Jill said, the problem with having a uniform member in the position of fitness coordinator is they get promoted, they have other aspirations, they're moving on. For me, it was such a passion for me that I dedicated half of my career to stay where I was. That's an unusual circumstance in most departments. I think the fact that I was there as long as I was really helped me to build the program. But in all honesty, I think FDNY fell a little short of the implementation piece. I would think they were thinking, let's just get this program designed and promoted, and then we kind of fell short. And then they kind of left it up to me to drive the program. And, you know, we were pretty successful in doing that. I had tremendous support from management and labor. But I think a really important piece here, and it's part of what we're working on now in the IAFF, is how can we create resources to allow the people in these positions to implement a positive and successful program?
Yeah, so two things there I think you said were really important as well. And that you can have extremely enthusiastic, passionate champions, you know, such as yourself, that can carry a program to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a comprehensive plan to support it, then that champion can only do so much. And when they leave, then you have this gaping hole because there was nothing in follow-up. There was no actual plan in place. So champion's incredibly important, but without a plan, not enough. And the other thing that you mentioned, and I might be just kind of reading between the lines here, but it's the continuity. And, you know, continuity or consistency is one of the most critical things to change behaviors. And it's not only the continuity or, you know, the consistency with having a champion in place, but if you're a department and you know, it's like, I want to implement, you know, this one thing that maybe lasts for 6 months, you get members excited, and then there's nothing in follow-up. And so you get them all, you know, geared up and enthusiastic for something. And then once that is done, it just stops. And it's like, well, what did I just get excited and why did I buy into this? And this, again, goes back to having a plan. So it's not just what are we doing over the next 6 months? It's what are we doing over the next 6 months that will then lead into this and then lead into this? How do we keep this sustainable in the long term, knowing that there's going to be, you know, people moving in and out? And so if you have, again, this system, and you can lean on the system to help carry things forwards, you know, when labor management relationship doesn't go, you know, perhaps in a positive direction. Like as Jill mentioned, if you do try and embed policies that people can point to, that will go a really long way to help keep things, I guess, sustainable in the long term.
I can't agree more. And I'll just add to that by saying, I don't want the audience members to think that you have to have an individual in place as long as Jill and I were in place in our respective departments. I think you can pass the torch and continue to maintain a successful program. It just has to be done in the right way.
Yeah, and this goes into the plan that's put in place. You know, what is the transition plan? So knowing that you have people moving in and out of different roles, what does it look like to transition? Because, you know, I know even in my own experience, you know, working with a number of departments, it's, you know, we get contacted by someone who's just been put in a position as the, you know, wellness and fitness coordinator. And it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just kind of got thrown into this role. Where do I start? And if we do have some type of transition plan in place, that will definitely ease that transition. So it's not just restarting. We can kind of pick up where things left off and just, you know, continue the momentum.
Agreed.
Costa, Grady, is there anything that you guys would like to add?
I defer to Costa. He looks better.
I really don't think I have, Dave, anything else to add. I think Jill and Craig, Jill and Mike, with everything they've said, it's fantastic. So thanks for asking.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate it, everybody. That's bringing us just about to the hour. If there are any questions, please, you know, write them down in the chat. We're happy to entertain them. The last thing I will mention is that, you know, with not only this project, but you know, again, the relationship between the IFC and the IAFF, we're continuing to build out resources to better support everybody in doing what they're doing. And so with the Fit to Thrive program, you know, a lot of resources are going to be, you know, shared, a lot for free. So I know that there was a question in the chat about volunteer departments. and this would apply to a lot of different departments, but if funding is not an option or funding is very limited, what can we do? And I think there are a lot of things that can be done. Again, thinking about champions, thinking about buy-in, thinking about engagement, if there are little tactic strategies to help change behaviors, the IAFF and the IAFC are really committed to providing resource departments to support that. And so look to both organizations, look to Fit to Thrive for some of that, coming down the pipe very, very shortly. Again, it doesn't, depending on where you are, I guess maybe rephrase, everybody's starting at a different point. And it's not a question of, can I do this? It's just, what's my first step? And that's what we really need to think about. The first step for everybody won't necessarily be the same thing. So perhaps the first step is not implementing a comprehensive medical, because it's costly, and there needs to be some momentum generated first. But everybody can find a first step. It's just, what is my first step? And we would like to provide little tools where every single department can plug in and essentially establish via a little questionnaire or survey, what are the initial conditions or the baseline conditions for my department? What might be a realistic first step for us given everything that's going on right now? And so that's our hope, that we can continue to support you guys regardless of where you happen to be, so you can take that first step. Okay, with that, again, I will say thank you very much for everybody who attended. I think our plan will be to share a recording of the webinar so everybody has this. But I would defer to the IAFF and the IAFC on perhaps when that happens and where it will be distributed. But please, yeah, Grady.
Hey, there's a question in the chat about, will the slides be shared from this webinar? Could you let the audience know how they could access the slide deck for this, please?
Yeah, so whether the slides themselves will be shared or a recording of the webinar, we will kind of work with the IFC and the IAFF on that. But through Fit to Thrive, we've also we have a series of other webinars also that are available, and so we'll probably post this webinar there as well. But we'll distribute everybody who's on the call or on the webinar at the moment. We'll make sure that in an email that's sent out, you guys have a direct link to either the slides or the recording of the webinar. Okay, thank you again, everyone. Really appreciate your time.
Awesome.